8 wines in 3 regions of Italy is what I want you to become familiar with. Hello everybody, this is the next episode of Decants with D. I am Dietmar Ostermann. I'm your host this afternoon. I'm the regular guy from Long Island. Italian wine, one of my favorite topics. As you watch my show more often, you know that other than Napa Valley Cabernet, probably my second most favorite wines in the world come from Italy. And Italy is vast. It has 20 different wine regions. But I want you to know that there is 3 regions that, in my opinion, are so much more important than all the others in Italy. And in those 3 Italian wine regions, I'd like you to know and be familiar with 8 Italian red wines. Let's get started on the topic. My number 1 region I want to introduce to you is the Piedmont region. Piedmont region is up there northwest of Italy. In Piedmont, you have 3 really strong red wines. The first one is the legendary Barolo, the king of the wines. The second one is the brother of Barolo, the Barbaresco. Both of these wines are made from the Nebbiolo grape. And then the third wine that is increasingly important is the Barbera. And the Barbera is actually in Piedmont the number 1 planted grape. Let's start off with the Barolo wine out of the region around the town of Barolo. Key towns is the town of Barolo, Serralunga di Alba, La Mora, Castiglione Felletto, and Monforte di Alba are the 5 well-known hilly mountain towns in this unbelievable, beautiful Piedmont region south of the city of Turin. The Barolo wine is the first wine in the Piedmont region. Barolo is considered to be the king of Italian wines. Barolo is made out of 100% Nebbiolo grape. It's a complicated wine. It takes some time to understand the Barolo wine. Barolo is a high tannins, strong acidity wine, full-bodied typically, has berry fruit, has tobacco and truffles in it, roses in the nose. And what is so complicated about the Barolo is that the Nebbiolo grape needs some time. So it is always a good idea to let a Barolo wine age. It's always a good idea to air out a Barolo wine and decant it because of the strong tannins. But if you want to experience how a wine develops, you can also pour it in your glass, drink a little bit right away, wait a few minutes, drink a little bit thereafter, finish off your glass after about half an hour, and you will see how that wine develops as it oxidizes. It's a complicated wine. It takes time to get used to it and to drink it, but once you get used to it, you will love Barolo. One of my favorite ones is Pio Cesare. Another one of my favorite vintas out there is Marchese di Barolo. Here you find the single vineyard Samassa wine. Both of these are top-notch favorites of mine. Second wine is Barbaresco. Barbaresco, just as Barolo, 100% Nebbiolo grape. But the Barbaresco wine is a little bit easier to approach and earlier to approach. This is the reason because it's located northeast of the town of Alba by the river Tanaro. And the Tanaro River reflects the sun in the summer and allows the wine to ripen earlier. And that's why Barbaresco typically is a little bit easier approachable. Fruits are red berries, cherry. It's an elegant wine, roses in the nose. And here I have in my hand the Produttori di Barbaresco, one of the top producers in Barbaresco. Pio Cesare also makes a top-notch Barbaresco. Moving on, actually, the most planted grape in the Piedmont region is not Nebbiolo, it's Barbera. In the Barbera, you have the Barbera di Asti and the Barbera di Alba. One is closer to the city of Alba, one is closer to the city of Asti. They say around Alba, most of the best vineyards are planted with Nebbiolo grape because they make the Barolos and the Barbarescos. That's why typically they say a Barbera di Asti may be better than a Barbera di Alba because some of the good Asti vineyards get the Barbera grape. That's an early, easy drinking wine. A lush wine, full body. It's a typical table wine. While the Barolos and Barbarescos are costing you $50 or more, the Barberas you can buy for $20, $25. So it's an easy drinking daily table wine. Moving on from Piedmont, the second wine region I'd like you to better understand is Veneto. Now the Veneto wine region is around the city of Verona, around Lake Garda. And the number one wine in Veneto is the Amarone della Valpolicella. And that is a heavy, heavy, heavy wine. Full of alcohol, one of the highest alcohol wines in the wine business. And these are full-bodied wines. And the reason they are so concentrated is because they are making these wines with the appassimento method. That's a method where you pluck the ripe grapes and put them on a straw mat and let them basically dehydrate over a period of 120 or so days in a barn before you then low temperature fermentation up to 50 days is typically what you see there. That is an age-worthy wine, just like a Barolo and a Barbaresco. You wouldn't really touch an Amarone di Valpolicella until it is probably at least 10 years old. Same with Barolos. These Barolos last for 20 or 30 years, and so does a good Amarone. Strong wine to be drunken with strong, meaty type of dishes like game or a steak. Moving on to my third region that I'd like to introduce to you, and that is my favorite region of all of them in Italy, Tuscany. In Tuscany you have a plethora of different wines, but you have the number one grape, Sangiovese. And of course, starting off debating Tuscan wines, you have to start off with Chianti. And Chianti is a DOCG by itself. Chianti Classico, that DOCG is more in the hilly areas, south of Florence, north of Siena, and that's where the best of the Chiantis are coming from. I have here in my hand the Castelgrave, a very good species, or the Castello di Volpaia, another fantastic vineyard. And here in the middle of it is one of my all-time favorites, the Marchese Antinori, here in particular the Chianti Classico Reserva, which is an excellent, excellent, excellent Chianti. The differences in Chianti Classico is the regular Chianti Classico, the Chianti Classico Reserva, and the Gran Selezione. Typically the grapes selected for the Gran Selezione are the best, and the aging requirements go up as you go towards the Reserva or the Gran Selezione. Now, a Chianti Classico for me is a typical Italian wine that I'd like to combine with a pasta dish. It has these earthy aromas. It has mostly cherry type of aromas and flavors, and it goes just very, very well, the Tuscan dirt and the earthiness with a pasta dish, ideally with some mushrooms or gamey type of dish included in the pasta. So that is the first wine in Tuscany. The second wine, and my favorite wine overall, hands down, is the Brunello di Montalcino. Brunello di Montalcino is 100% out of Sangiovese grape. In that part of Italy, around the town of Montalcino, they call the Sangiovese grape Brunello. The Chianti could be 80% plus Sangiovese grape, but the Brunello is always 100% Sangiovese. Casanova di Neri, one of my favorite producers there. San Filippo, another one of my favorite producers here. And here in the middle, I have an all-time favorite, the Val di Cava, a super Brunello di Montalcino. What I like about the Brunello di Montalcino, first of all, is this beautiful, crystal, shiny, dark, ruby color. It's so beautiful to look at that clear but dark color. I also like the sour cherry aromas and fruit. A Brunello di Montalcino is well aged. We're talking 4 or 5 years, in the Reserva even more. And a lot of those aging has to be in oak. So this is a strong wine, an age-worthy wine, but it has a lot more finesse as opposed to the brutality of the Barolo and the Nebbiolo grape. As I said, hands down, my favorite wine. Unfortunately, the Brunello di Montalcinos are not cheap, and that goes along with A, it's rare, it's only produced around the hill of Montalcino, and B, they have these significant aging requirements, so these wines are tied up in inventory for a good 5 years. And that's why the cheapest of them are $50, and they clearly go up to $125, $150 for a good Brunello di Montalcino. If you don't want to spend that much money, there's also a Rosso di Montalcino. So the Rosso di Montalcino also comes from the town of Montalcino, the same vineyards, but these wines have no specific oak aging requirements. They are wines that are produced for young drinking. I think the only stipulation is you can release this wine in September of the next year after the prior year harvest. It's a good, easy drinking wine, just like a Barbera, but a little bit lighter than a Barbera. I like it quite a bit, and I think it's a good Italian table wine. Also in Tuscany, you have the Vino Nobile di Montepulciano. Such a beautiful town, that town of Montepulciano. And the Vino Nobile di Montepulciano is again a wine predominantly based on Sangiovese, coming from the town of Montepulciano. 70% or more in that mixture has to be Sangiovese grape, and it has to be a wine that is aged for 2 years. So it's a little bit stronger than a Rosso di Montalcino, and a little bit less sophisticated than a Brunello, a little bit easier drinking, a little bit more affordable on the budget. A Vino Nobile you typically buy for $30 to $40. And then finally and lastly, there are the Super Tuscans. The legendary 4 are the Sassicaia, the Tignanello, the Solaia, and the Ornellaia. In the meantime, they have many, many more, but the original 4 are still by far the best. And Super Tuscans is referred to breaking the rules of the very strict Italian winemaking laws, and allows the winter to mix a Sangiovese with a Cabernet or a Merlot or a Shiraz. And those blended wines are called Super Tuscans, and several of them are made in Tuscany, but there's also now a lot of them made in Bolgheri region of Italy. Those are, ladies and gentlemen, my recommendations for 3 regions in Italy, 8 wines, and 2 of my all-time favorites, Barolo and particularly Brunello di Montalcino. Hope you enjoyed this show, this fast-paced run through Italian wines. If you like this show, please press the like button and subscribe to my channel. And I see you next Sunday.